All right, let's jump straight into what is essentially a high-stakes geopolitical thriller, and it's playing out right now behind our screens. In this explainer, we're unpacking the rapidly escalating global AI race. We're going to look specifically at the unprecedented worldwide shutdown of Anthropic's most advanced models, the really obscure government directives they use to force it, and the incredibly controversial push to physically wire kill switches directly into AI hardware. So if you want to understand how the very architecture of our future is being governed and fiercely fought over, you are definitely in the right place.
Okay, let's dive into this because to understand how we got here, we really have to look at the shocking warning from former White House AI czar David Sacks. This quote was the explicit trigger for a massive, sudden government crackdown. According to reports, a highly trusted partner demonstrated a jailbreak of Anthropic's cutting-edge AI guardrails. And we're not just talking about a minor glitch here. The government viewed this vulnerability as so severe that it could literally enable the operability of a cyber weapon, something that could actually generate working exploit code and hunt down zero-day vulnerabilities.
Well, that warning set off an unbelievably rapid 72-hour sequence of events. So in early June 2026, Anthropic launched Fable 5, which is the public version of their immensely powerful Mythos 5 model. But then, on Friday, June 12th, at exactly 5:21 p.m. Eastern Time, the U.S. Commerce Department stepped in. They ordered Anthropic to suspend all access to both of those models for any foreign national, globally. And here is where technical reality just slammed into government demands. Because Anthropic simply couldn't reliably verify the exact nationality of every single user on such short notice, they were forced to just pull the plug entirely. Within hours, a total worldwide blackout of their most powerful models was in full effect.
Now you might be wondering, how did the government pull this off so fast? We have to zoom out to the exact legal mechanism they used. They didn't pass a new law for this. Instead, they used a rapid deployment administrative tool known as an is-informed letter, or an IIL. Issued directly under the signature of Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, this directive legally forces a company to get a specific license before exporting or transferring their technology to foreign persons. And get this, that applies even if those persons are employed by the company right here within the United States. It essentially classifies the AI model as a heavily controlled national security asset. According to a legal analysis from Mayor Brown, this letter basically rests on two existing pillars of U.S. law. First, there's a statute that grants the Commerce Department the authority to slap interim controls on any emerging technologies they deem essential to national security. Second, there's a regulation that empowers the government to mandate licenses anytime there's an unacceptable risk of a product being diverted to military intelligence in countries of concern. So the U.S. government essentially flexed its existing regulatory muscle to treat software code exactly like physical munitions. However, the actual facts on the ground here are highly contested. The U.S. government maintains that the risks were absolutely grave, citing those zero-day cyber vulnerabilities and arguing that commercial release was prioritized over public safety. Anthropic, on the other hand, views this whole thing as a massive overreaction. Their argument is that the tester only found a narrow jailbreak that revealed minor vulnerabilities that, by the way, were already known to the government and are actually already present in other public models out there, like OpenAI's GPT 5.5. Some observers are even pointing to some recent friction between Anthropic and the Pentagon as the real underlying context for this totally unprecedented shutdown.
Let's move to and see how this builds. Part 1. The geopolitical thriller, the U.S.-China tech race.
You see, this specific company dispute is actually just one tiny battle in a much larger macroeconomic war. The urgency the U.S. government is feeling to lock down domestic AI models is directly tied to the astonishing, breakneck pace of AI development happening across the Pacific right now. This anxiety skyrocketed recently with the release of the GLM 5.2 model by a Beijing-based developer called ZAI. This model has drawn some serious public admiration from Silicon Valley, with observers literally calling it a mini DeepSeek moment. Why? Because GLM 5.2 is reportedly performing right on par with leading American models like Claude Opus 4.8, but it's doing so at a fraction of the cost, and most importantly, completely without relying on the most advanced US-designed chips. China is actively proving they can close the perceived capability gap and achieve top-tier performance despite those strict US hardware embargoes.
If we look at analysis from the Brookings Institution, we can really juxtapose the distinct advantages of both superpowers in this race. Right now, the United States dominates the virtual world. Their strength is in advancing cutting-edge research, building those highly complex foundational models, and maintaining vast, deeply integrated commercial software ecosystems. China, conversely, holds a massive advantage in the physical world. Their strength lies in advanced manufacturing, hardware innovation, and incredibly resilient supply chain logistics. they're proving they can still make massive strides in development even when they are entirely denied access to the best physical inputs.
Part 2. Deep Tech Enforcement. Hardware Governance.
And this brilliantly illustrates a huge problem. If software is just too fluid to easily contain, and digital geofencing fails miserably, like we just saw with Anthropic, how do policymakers actually intend to enforce these digital rules on a global scale? Well, the answer seems to be moving governance all the way down to the hardware level. This taxonomy from an archive research paper breaks down these mechanisms by their actual engineering feasibility. At the top, we have what is currently deployable, things like those physical hardware export controls the US is already using aggressively. In the middle, near-term R&D includes stuff like on-chip compute metering, which physically tracks how much processing power is being used. But down at the bottom is the speculative category, remote disablement, or kill switches. This is the incredibly controversial idea of building backdoors directly into the silicon so governments can just turn them off from afar.
But as you might guess, implementing these hardware controls is incredibly difficult due to some really severe constraints. First off, the window of opportunity is narrowing fast. The US's leverage completely depends on just a few companies dominating chip manufacturing, and that's not going to last forever. Second, we're already seeing widespread evasion of these export controls through massive, complex shadow supply chains. Third, developers are getting really good at distributed AI training, meaning they don't actually need all the chips in one single place anymore. And finally, there is immense sovereign resistance. Other nations simply do not want US-dominated tracking technology embedded right into their critical computing infrastructure.
So this brings us to a really critical question that is currently deeply dividing both the tech industry and policymakers. Are hardware kill switches a necessary ultimate safeguard against rogue AI and adversarial nations, or are they just an open invitation for disastrous security breaches and complete infrastructure failure? Unsurprisingly, the hardware industry is pushing back fiercely against the government's desire to mandate these trackers and switches. Nvidia actually delivered this incredibly concrete, relatable metaphor to explain their sharp opposition. They argue that hardwiring a kill switch is basically introducing a permanent flaw that is completely beyond user control. As they put it, it's like buying a car where the dealership keeps a remote control for the parking brake just in case they decide you shouldn't be driving. For industry leaders, deliberately weakening our critical infrastructure just to satisfy geopolitical fears is a line that should absolutely never be crossed.
So, the crucial point is, Part 3, the global regulatory divide.
While the US and China are racing for dominance, and companies are out here fighting over kill switches, the rest of the world is desperately trying to actually write the rules. If we zoom out, we are seeing sharply diverging legal philosophies on how to contain this rapidly evolving technology. According to an analysis from LiveLaw, the European Union is taking a very product safety-rooted approach. The EU AI Act features incredibly rigid risk tiers, comprehensive legislation, and massive corporate fines that can reach up to 35 million euros. They treat AI as a technology that requires deep, preemptive governance. The US approach, however, is highly innovation permissive. At the federal level, it's mostly just light guidance prioritizing economic dominance, which leaves actual enforcement to a messy, fragmented, and often contradictory patchwork of state-level consumer protection laws.
And because national laws always end at borders, experts are now proposing massive, incredibly ambitious international frameworks to try and standardize AI regulation globally. We are talking about globally unprecedented ideas here. Things like creating a literal, global compute pause button that could immediately halt dangerous training runs worldwide. Others are suggesting a powerful international AI agency modeled entirely on the IAEA's approach to nuclear monitoring. There are even serious proposals for a secure chips agreement, similar to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, alongside highly complex technical solutions like on-chip cryptographic proof-of-training protocols to allow for privacy-preserving compliance checks.
The reality is, the regulatory gaps are massive, the technology is moving at an exponential rate, and the geopolitical stakes have literally never been higher. Which leaves us with this final, vital question. Can humanity actually build a unified, effective international AI treaty, one that balances rapid innovation with genuine safety before the technology completely outpaces our ability to govern it? It is arguably the defining challenge of our era. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep your eyes on the data.